Yeah, this week, shalom everybody. This week is on Miketz. It's about after Joseph was in prison and Pharaoh had a dream. But this portion here is very, I like this portion a lot because it deals with a lot of issues that a lot of us go through in life. And Pharaoh had a dream. This is just break this down. Pharaoh had a dream, and it was going to be basically 7 good years of food, and then there was going to be 7 years of famine, where none of the crops or none of that was going to grow. So later on, Joseph told Pharaoh, "Well, this is what we're going to do. We're going to take when the good years come, we're going to store up the food from the good years, the 7 good years." So when the famine comes, and it's going to be 7 years of famine, we're going to have enough food to eat. Okay? And this is important. Why? Because the life lesson that you see in this, that there's going to be good, but then there's going to also be bad. And you got to prepare for the bad. Because everybody in life got this honeymoon phase, where they think everything is just going to be good. And they don't consider that it's going to have consequences or there's going to be bad that comes with it. You see, and Joseph had a plan. And I tell people, failure to plan is planning for failure. You must have a plan in store. Because you dig a well before you get thirsty. See, these are the things that we don't do in life. We tend to accumulate bills and then look for a job to try to help with the bills. You see, I tell people that's a thing called present bias. It's when you're a prisoner of the moment. You're a short-term thinker. You think for the right now and instead of the future. This is why I see a lot of people who get into the Israelite way of life, and when they enter into it, they like it at first. But as time goes on, when they start realizing all the rules and regulations and the things they start missing that they was doing prior, then they start to taper off, and then next thing you know, 5 years down the line, you would never thought they was an Israelite, period. And this is what happens in life. And I always tell people, you gotta prepare yourself. Because there's going to be good times and there's also going to be bad times. But the reason why you have the good times, so it can prepare you for the bad. But nowadays, people don't plan. And I tell this to people, you must have a goal in everything in life, especially if you're in a relationship with a person. What are your relationship goals? Where is this goal? Okay? And I always tell people, not just in a relationship, just in life. I tell people, write down your goals, but don't forget to put down the sacrifices that comes with it. Because people got goals, but they forget that you gotta also write down the sacrifices. You want to be a millionaire? That comes with a lot of sacrifices. You see, it comes with, you may miss birthdays from your children. You may have to travel a lot. You may have to work a lot and not be there with your family. So you also gotta write down the sacrifices that comes with it, especially as an Israelite. Because as an Israelite, I tell people, the Sabbath gets a lot of people. That's why you got Israelites that teach how you can break the Sabbath because of grace. That is a lie. You got people who try to switch the scriptures because they're not willing to deal with the discipline and sacrifices that comes with being an Israelite. Why I say that? Because people get married, they think of the honeymoon, the wedding ring, the cakes, all of the glitz and glamour, but they forget that the marriage is different from a wedding. A wedding is nothing but a party, celebrate. The marriage, that's different. You taking 2 lives and you intermix them and they become one. That's the difference. That's why I tell people, the greater the goal, the greater the sacrifice. Because if you got goals but you don't have actions with it, no sacrifices, that's called the wish list. You gotta turn that sacrifice into the sacrifice is your success. And I always tell people, what are you willing to sacrifice? Because as an Israelite, when the Feast of Tabernacles come up, the Hebrew word Sukkot, it says you're supposed to dwell in a booth for 7 days. Not a lot of people who come into this Israelite way of life even do. And I'll be honest, the only way you keep the feast of Sukkot according to the Torah, the Feast of Tabernacles, is it says you must dwell in a booth. If you're not dwelling in a booth, leaving your bed, leaving the comfort of your home, living in a booth for 7 days, you did not keep it. And this is what gets people when you gotta go outside and sleep in that booth or in them tents. It gets people. Why? Because people are not willing to sacrifice their comfort. And I always tell people, get comfortable being uncomfortable. You must have a plan. You must have goals. When you have goals, then you have standards. Standards is what helps you keep your goals. Now, with that being said, I go down later on in this talk, and it talks about how Joseph's brothers, they started going through hardship because they sold him in Egypt. Judah's 2 sons died. He had issues with Tamar because of that. Reuben, all of them had issues. They started to accumulate issues because of what they did to Joseph. But one thing they said, and I admire this, even though I didn't like a lot of their action, they took accountability and said the things that we're going through is because of what we did to our brother, which means they took accountability. Accountability is important because what doesn't grow dies. And when you take accountability for the actions in your life or the things that went on in your life, now you're wrong. You see, because people would rather make excuses instead of changing. This is what people do. But when you are grown, when you secure yourself, when you change, you tend to accept you're wrong and then move on. You see, this is the thing of accepting accountability. You don't want to beat yourself up too much, but yes, you still got to acknowledge that you are the reason in the force forward. And I tell people, do not use today to relive yesterday. Once you take accountability, you got to accept it and now you got to move on. Let it make you a better person. Because meaningful success begins when we take ownership and responsibility for our part in the shortcomings of our lives. But people don't do that. The Israelite brothers acknowledge the wrong that is happening to us because of what we did. They didn't blame no one. They blamed themselves. But you see, people in life like to have the I call the victim mentality. It's called victimhood. They'd rather point the finger instead of the thumb. And this is what I always tell people. You can't have the self-pity. Because self-pity comes down to 2 things. It'll make you a complainer or it'll make you a competitor. A complainer is someone who's going to now look for an excuse for why he's in the situation he's in, instead of being a competitor saying, I'm going to fight my way out of this and make things better. You see, people will tell you about the problems they have and what's going on wrong in their life, but very seldom do they tell you their part that they played in the problems that they have in life. And people don't do that. They'd rather point the finger instead of pointing the thumb. And this is the problem with victimhood. Most people who play the victim, most of them, they're the reason for the problems they have. And I always tell people, don't invest in your future problems. The first rule, if you're in a hole and you're trying to get out of it, the first rule is stop digging yourself deeper in a hole. You gotta understand, stop digging yourself deeper. There's certain things in life that you gotta realize that you just gotta run away from, and there's some problems you can fix. That's called intelligence. There's certain problems you just gotta run away from. You can't fix all of them. See, when you take accountability, you start looking at your actions, things you did wrong. Don't let someone else bear your burden because you made mistakes you did wrong. No, you gotta be honest and tell yourself, these are the I'm wrong because of the mistakes that I made. But the brothers didn't play the victim role. They didn't have self-pity. They acknowledged that the things that they went through in life after what they did to Joseph, it was because of their actions. They didn't blame no one. They blamed themselves. And most people in this world, I'm telling you, they'll point the finger instead of pointing the thumb. The last part, the brothers, even though they took accountability, they didn't let that define who they was. Because what did they say later? What they did was, they told their father, listen, give us Benjamin. You see, This is why I tell people, take advantage of the opportunity. The way them brothers treated Joseph, they didn't treat the other younger brother that way. They learned their lesson. And that's the problem that a lot of people don't do. They don't learn their lessons. You see, this is the thing that I tell people. The word mistake comes from two words. Miss and take. What do you take from your miss? You see, doing something over and over and expecting a different outcome, that is called insanity. But the brothers realized we did wrong with Joseph, but they was not going to do wrong with Benjamin. Okay? And this is the thing. What are you doing with the opportunity you had when you are given a chance to do better and correct your wrong? The Israelite brothers, I give them that. They did right. They stepped up and they was ready. They was ready for the challenge to do good by the other brother. This is what I tell people what mistakes is. A mistake is experience is the name everyone gives to their mistakes. Oh, I made a mistake. But it's just an experience. I learned from. And I tell people, if you don't learn from your mistakes, someone else will. So you got to take your mistakes and teach your children or teach someone else, because someone else will eventually fall into the same path that you did. This is why in life you see the same cycle. This woman has a baby, not married. She has a child. Her daughter don't get married. And this cycle keep going and going and going and going. Someone has to eventually learn from your mistakes. Let it be you and teach someone else. Okay? Because if you don't learn from your mistakes, someone else will. And the problem with mistakes is people learn the right lessons from your mistakes. People in this day and age tend to learn the wrong lessons. This is why I tell people to learn the wrong lessons. There was a man that he was walking in New York, found the gun, took the gun, and went to a pawn shop and sold it. The clerk sold the gun, hit the button, called the cops, the police locked the man up. The man goes to court. He tells the judge what happened. The judge said, I'm going to let you go. I'm going to release you. In New York, you cannot find the gun and sell it, okay? He said, yes. He said, okay, so what did you learn? So the next time you find a gun, what are you going to do? The man said, I'll go to New Jersey and sell it. The man who get caught cheating on his wife, once he get caught cheating on his wife, what do you do? I'll just put my phone on silent and leave it in the car. Instead of not cheating on your woman, see, this is what people do. People learn the wrong lessons. Instead of avoiding a situation, people try to handle it differently. And you can't do that. Because once you have an opportunity to make right on your mistakes, you leave the situation alone. This is what you do. You don't try to better yourself in your wrong. No, you either avoid it or you just leave the situation completely alone. But people, let's be honest, we don't do that. I know a guy who said, yo, I robbed the bank. That's why I was in prison. I said, so what are you going to do? Oh, next time I rob a bank, I'm going to go right to the bank teller because she the one who did the button. I love that. No, instead of saying, I'm going to just get a job and stop robbing banks, they try to be better at what their mistakes were. And we can't be that way. You have to avoid the situation. But even in avoiding the situation, there's something called flagellation. Self-flagellation is ultimate self-defeating. It's important to distinguish between hating yourself and hating something you did. And this is the other part of it, because people have had so many mistakes or done bad things that it's hard for them to even forgive themselves. And they walk around with that burden all the time. And I tell people there's a difference between an accident, a mistake, and something that's done on purpose. An accident is something you can't control. There's no malice involved. You can get rear-ended. That's an accident. You had nothing to do with it. A mistake is something you did that was wrong, but it didn't have malice or it wasn't intentional. On purpose is something when you knew right from wrong and you choose the wrong. That's a difference. And this is why I say the mistakes we make in life, you gotta learn from. You can't keep doing the same thing over and over because you are what you repeatedly do. You see, you gotta hate what you did instead of hating yourself. And some people burden themselves with the bad choices that they made in life. You see, and this is why I tell people you can't try to justify your mistakes by trying to find a better way to do it. You can either cover the behavior or you can change the behavior. And once you change the behavior, it is a mistake. But if you constantly keep doing it over and over and over, that is called long purpose. You are what you repeatedly do. So you gotta learn how to hate what you did instead of hating yourself. You got, and I tell this to people, we always learn from our mistakes, but we don't always learn the big lessons from the mistake. One thing I give them to my brothers, they learn their lesson. They said enough is enough. They wash their hands with it and they shit, they did better. And I keep telling people, don't beat yourself down too much. If you keep looking in the rear view mirror, you will never see the road ahead of you. Driving a car and keep looking in your rear view mirror, you're not going to see the road that's ahead of you. I tell people, if you use it to fuel you, mistakes won't move, because you can take that mistake and it can make you a better person. Now you learn. Now you learn from it. And take that as the message for this week. Don't take the mistakes and learn the wrong lessons from it. No, take the mistakes and learn the right lessons. And that's what these Israelite brothers did. Now they started to love their other brother better. They treated their other brother better. They didn't treat Benjamin the way they treated Joseph. And this is something that we have to also distinguish. Hating what we did versus hating ourselves. The brothers didn't hate themselves. They hated what they did, and it made them a better person. And this is the problem, before I go, that some people have. We begin to beat ourselves down so much, hate ourselves. But we also got to realize that we played a part in some of the mistakes and wrong we have done. I just told that to a sister, oh, I hate these men, they always lying to me. Well, the problem is not that they're lying to you. Your problem is that you keep believing their lies. But he promised me. In the word compromise, you see the word promise. A promise can be compromised. You gotta have self-esteem and know that this is not truthful. This is a lie. You can, once you grow up, once you learn your mistake, I'm telling you, it makes you a better person. If you repeatedly do the same thing over and over, expecting a different outcome, that is called insanity. So learn this week from what the brothers did. They did wrong. They took accountability. They didn't blame no one for their mistakes, for their problems. And then they changed. They took advantage of the opportunity. And it made them better. Now you start to see the emergence of Judah. And now you started seeing the love they had for the other brother. And it made them better. So a mistake can make you fall. Like I always tell people, don't watch where you fell, watch where you slipped. Because if you watch where you slip, you don't got to worry about it anymore. Just ask yourself, what do you be thinking about when you be thinking about doing the things you're thinking about doing that is wrong? You got to start asking yourself that question. You got to dig deep down inside and get ugly with yourself and start answering the question, well, I am insecure. I just told this brother, I don't say man. The reason why you keep getting the same kind of woman, it's the same woman with a different name. They got big butts, they got big breasts, they look a certain way, just with different names. You gotta be honest. You're insecure, so you're looking for a trophy woman to get accolades. We gotta be truthful with ourselves and ask ourselves why we keep getting in the same position. The Israelites ran around that mountain for 40 years and didn't realize they was in the wilderness. Still doing the same thing over and over because they haven't realized what they was doing.